The message came at midnight, Earth time. Ambassador Daniel Carter was sleeping in his quarters aboard the human station when his communicator started beeping. He opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling for a moment. In 15 years of serving among the stars, he had learned that late-night messages never brought good news. He sat up and pressed the button on his communicator. The face of his assistant appeared on the small screen. She looked worried. "Sir, we have received an urgent summons from the Galactic Council. They are calling an emergency session. All human representatives must attend." Daniel rubbed his eyes. "Did they say what it is about?" "No, sir." But the message came directly from High Arbiter Zethros himself. That was unusual. The High Arbiter rarely involved himself in routine matters. Whatever this was, it was serious. "Wake Commander Mitchell and Dr. Cole," Daniel said. "Tell them to meet me in the briefing room in 1 hour." He ended the call and got out of bed. Through the window of his quarters, he could see the endless darkness of space, dotted with distant stars. Somewhere out there, 8 billion humans lived on Earth and its colonies. They were counting on him to protect their interests. He hoped he would not let them down. 1 hour later, Daniel sat at the head of a long table in the briefing room. To his right was Commander Laura Mitchell, a tall woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes. She had served in the Earth Defense Coalition for 20 years and had seen combat against pirates and raiders in the outer territories. She was not someone who scared easily. To his left was Nathan Cole, the chief science advisor. He was a thin man with glasses and a nervous habit of tapping his fingers on the table. But behind that anxious appearance was one of the smartest minds humanity had ever produced. He had helped design the quantum slip engines that made human ships the fastest in the galaxy. "So what do we know?" Laura asked. Daniel shook his head. "Almost nothing. The Council has called an emergency session. They want all human representatives there. No explanation given." Nathan stopped tapping his fingers. "That is not a good sign. The Council does not call emergency sessions for small matters. The last one was 50 years ago, when the Drummond Collective invaded the Cathari border worlds. Do you think this is about the Myra situation?" Laura asked. Daniel had been thinking the same thing. 6 months ago, a plague had swept through the Myra homeworld. The Myra were a peaceful species, known for their art and music. They had no enemies and posed no threat to anyone. But when they asked the Council for help, the Council had refused. They said the risk of contamination was too high. They voted to quarantine the Myra system and let the plague run its course. Humanity had disagreed with that decision. While the Council debated, human medical ships had slipped through the quarantine and delivered vaccines and supplies. They had saved millions of lives. The Myra were grateful. The Council was not. "It might be about the Myra," Daniel said. "Or it might be about something else entirely. Either way, we need to be prepared for anything." They spent the next few hours reviewing files and documents. They looked at every treaty humanity had signed, every agreement they had made, every promise they had given. They tried to guess what accusations the Council might bring against them. By the time their ship docked at the Council station, Daniel felt like he had not slept in days. But he put on his best suit, straightened his tie, and walked down the boarding ramp with his head held high. Whatever was coming, he would face it with dignity. The Council station was the largest structure in the known galaxy. It hung in space like a small moon, its surface covered with towers and domes and landing platforms. Ships from 100 different species came and went at all hours. The station never slept. Daniel and his team were met by a group of Council guards. They were Valorians, tall humanoid creatures with pale skin and silver eyes. The Valorians were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Council. They looked down on younger races like humans with barely hidden contempt. "Ambassador Carter," the lead guard said, "you will follow us to the Great Hall The session is about to begin." They walked through long corridors filled with alien diplomats and officials. Daniel noticed that many of them were staring at the human delegation. Some looked curious. Others looked nervous. A few looked almost pleased, as if they were expecting something entertaining to happen. The great hall was enormous. Its walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. Rows of seats rose up on all sides, forming an amphitheater that could hold thousands of beings. At the center was a raised platform where speakers could address the assembly. Daniel counted representatives from at least 40 different species. He saw the insectoid forms of the Zithrani, the serpentine bodies of the Cathari, the massive bulk of the Draman warriors. All of them were watching as the human delegation took their seats in the section reserved for probationary members. Probationary members. That was what humanity had been for 300 years. When humans first ventured into space, they had discovered that the galaxy was already full of civilizations. These civilizations had formed the Galactic Council, a governing body that set rules and maintained order. Humanity had been allowed to join, but only as a junior partner. They had to prove themselves worthy of full membership. 3 centuries later, they were still proving themselves. High Arbiter Zethros entered the hall and took his place on the central platform. He was a Zithrani, a species that looked like giant insects with 4 arms and compound eyes. His exoskeleton was a deep purple color, marking him as a member of the ruling caste. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a rhythm that the translation devices converted into words. "The Galactic Council is now in session," Zethros announced. "We have gathered here today to address a matter of great importance. A matter concerning the species known as humans." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. Beside him, Laura's hand moved slightly toward the weapon she was not allowed to carry in the council chambers. "For 300 years, Zethros continued, humanity has held probationary membership in this council. They have been given time to learn our ways, to follow our laws, to prove that they are worthy of standing among the great civilizations of the galaxy." He paused, and his compound eyes seemed to focus directly on Daniel. "The time for judgment has come. Today, this council will decide the fate of the human race." A murmur spread through the assembly. Daniel looked around at the alien faces. Some were curious. Some were hostile. Some were afraid. But none of them, Daniel realized, were surprised. Whatever was about to happen, they had known about it in advance. This was not a trial. It was a trap, and humanity had walked right into it. The great hall fell silent as a new figure took the platform. She was a Cathari, one of the serpentine species that controlled much of the eastern territories. Her scales were a dark green color, and her eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils. She moved with a slow, deliberate grace that reminded Daniel of a snake preparing to strike. "I am Vasharin," she announced, her voice a low hiss that the translators converted into cold, precise words. "I speak today as the official prosecutor of the Galactic Council. I have been given the task of presenting the charges against the human race." Daniel sat very still. Beside him, Nathan was already taking notes on a small device. Laura had her arms crossed and her face set in a hard expression. Vasharin raised a datapad and began to read. Charge 1. Violation of Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. Unauthorized expansion into the neutral territories. The humans have established colonies in 17 star systems that were designated as neutral space. They did this without seeking council approval. Daniel wanted to object. The neutral territories had been empty for centuries. No one was using them. No one wanted them. Humanity had asked for permission to settle there and had been ignored. After waiting 50 years for an answer, they had simply gone ahead. But he stayed quiet. This was not the time to speak. Charge 2, Vasharin continued. Violation of Article 12. Development of prohibited weapons systems. Our intelligence reports indicate that the humans have been building weapons capable of destroying entire planets. This was a lie, and Daniel knew it. Humanity had developed powerful weapons, yes. They had no choice. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and not every species was friendly. But they had never built anything capable of destroying a planet. That was something only the Valorian Empire had done, and the Council had never charged them with any crime. Charge 3. Violation of Article 23. Failure to submit genetic modification research for Council approval. The humans have been altering their own biology without permission. They have made themselves stronger, faster, and more resistant to disease. This one was at least partly true. Humanity had been improving itself through genetic science for over 200 years. It had started with curing diseases and fixing birth defects. Over time, it had grown into something more. But every species in the galaxy did the same thing. The Gethari themselves were products of thousands of years of genetic engineering. It was hypocritical to single out humans for doing what everyone else did. The list went on. Vashran read charge after charge, her voice never changing, never showing emotion. She accused the humanity of interfering in the internal affairs of other species. She accused them of spying on council members. She accused them of forming secret alliances with races outside the council's control. And then she reached the charge that Daniel had been dreading. Charge 16. Violation of Article 59. Possession of faster-than-light technology exceeding Council-sanctioned parameters. The murmuring in the hall grew louder. This was the real issue. This was what the Council truly cared about. For centuries, travel between stars had been limited by the speed of Council-approved engines. A journey of 100 light-years might take months or even years. This kept the galaxy stable. It meant that no single species could move faster than any other. It meant that wars were slow and expensive. It meant that the powerful species stayed powerful, and the weak species stayed weak. But 10 years ago, humanity had invented something new. They called it the quantum slip drive. It worked by folding space around a ship and slipping through the fold, arriving at the destination almost instantly. A trip that once took months could now be completed in hours. The Council had ordered humanity to hand over the technology. Humanity had refused. They had offered to share it freely with all species, but the Council had rejected that offer. They did not want everyone to have it. They wanted no one to have it. Daniel understood why. The quantum slip drive changed everything. It meant that human ships could be anywhere in the galaxy within hours. It meant that human colonies could support each other, could trade with each other, could defend each other. It meant that humanity was no longer dependent on the slow, controlled systems that the Council preferred. It meant that humanity was dangerous. Vashran finished reading the charges and lowered her datapad. In summary, she said, the human race has shown a consistent pattern of disregard for Council authority. They have broken our laws. They have ignored our warnings. They have placed their own interests above the good of the galaxy. She turned to face the human delegation directly, her yellow eyes fixed on Daniel with an expression that might have been hatred or might have been satisfaction. The Council therefore proposes the following sanctions. High Arbiter Zethros rose from his seat. He took over from Vashran, reading from his own datapad. First, all human ships, equipped with quantum slip technology, will be surrendered to the Council for destruction. Second, the human military will be reduced to a ceremonial force of no more than 1,000 personnel. Third, all human colonies outside the Sol system will accept permanent Council observers with full authority over security matters. Daniel felt his hands tightening into fists. He forced himself to relax. Fourth, all genetic modification programs will be placed under Council supervision Fifth, human. Travel outside designated zones will require council approval. Sixth, any. Violation of these terms will result in immediate military intervention. The hall was completely silent now. Even the delegates who had seemed hostile before looked uncomfortable. These were not sanctions. These were the terms of surrender. The council was demanding that humanity give up everything it had built over the past 3 centuries. Nathan leaned close to Daniel and whispered, "They want to turn us into slaves." Daniel did not answer. He was watching the faces of the council members. He was looking for allies, for sympathizers, for anyone who might object to what was happening. He found none. The Valorians looked pleased. The Getheri looked satisfied. The Drummond looked bored, as if the fate of 8 billion humans was not worth their attention. Even the smaller species, the ones that humanity had helped over the years, kept their eyes down and their mouths shut. This had been planned. This had been coordinated. Every species in the council had agreed to this before the session even began. Hi. Arbiter Zethro set down his datapad and looked at the human delegation. "Ambassador Carter," he said, "you may now respond to the charges and propose sanctions. The council will hear your words before rendering its final judgment." Daniel stood up slowly. He could feel every eye in the hall watching him. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. He had prepared a speech. He had written it carefully, choosing each word to appeal to reason and fairness. He had planned to negotiate, to compromise, to find some middle ground that would protect humanity while satisfying the council. But as he looked around at those alien faces, he realized that no speech would matter. They had already made their decision. They had already decided to crush humanity. Nothing he could say would change their minds, so he would not try to change their minds. He would do something else entirely. He would show them exactly why they should be afraid. Daniel Carter walked to the speaker's platform in the center of the great hall. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Thousands of alien eyes followed his every move. He reached the platform and turned to face the assembly. He took a deep breath. Then he began to speak. "Hi, Arbiter Zethros. Distinguished delegates of the Galactic Council. I have listened to the charges against my species with great care. I have heard the list of our crimes. I have heard the punishments you wish to impose upon us." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. "I find myself curious about something." The prosecutor spoke of Article 7, which forbids expansion into neutral territories. She accused humanity of settling 17 star systems without permission. Daniel turned to look at the Drummond delegation. They were massive creatures, built like mountains of muscle and bone. Their empire controlled over 100 star systems. But I remember something interesting from 30 years ago. The Drummond Collective invaded 3 systems in the Outer Reach. These systems belonged to a peaceful species called the Talori. The Talori asked the Council for help. The Council did nothing. Today, there are no more Talori. Their species is extinct. The Drummond ambassador shifted in his seat but said nothing. The prosecutor spoke of Article 12. Daniel continued. She accused humanity of building weapons of mass destruction. Terrible weapons that could destroy planets. He turned to look at the Valorian delegation. They sat in seats of honor near the High Arbiter, their pale faces showing no emotion. But the Valorian Empire maintains a fleet of ships called World Breakers. I have seen the reports. These ships carry weapons that can crack a planet open like an egg. They have used these weapons twice in the last century. Once against the Rillian homeworld. Once against a colony of refugees who had nowhere else to go. The Valorian ambassador rose to his feet. This is outrageous. The human is deflecting from his own crimes by making false accusations against honorable members of this council. "Sit down," Daniel said quietly. His voice was calm, but something in it made the Valorian pause. I am not finished speaking. The Valorian looked at the High Arbiter. Zethros clicked his mandibles impatiently but nodded. The Valorian sat back down, his silver eyes burning with anger. Daniel continued. The prosecutor spoke of Article 23. She accused humanity of genetic modification. She made it sound like we were creating monsters in secret laboratories. He looked around at the assembled delegates. But every species in this hall has modified their own genes at some point. The Cathari designed themselves to be perfect predators. The Valorians engineered themselves to live for 500 years. The Zethrani created their caste system through selective breeding over 10,000 generations. Humanity has done nothing that others have not done before us. The hall was very quiet now. Daniel could see delegates exchanging glances, whispering to each other. They had expected the human to beg for mercy. They had expected him to apologize and promise to do better. They had not expected this. And then we come to the real charge, Daniel said. Article 59. The Quantum Slip Drive. This is what truly concerns you, is it not? He walked slowly across the platform, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. For 300 years, humanity has been a probationary member of this council. We have followed your rules. We have paid your fees. We have submitted to your inspections and your regulations. We have been patient. We have been polite. We have done everything you asked of us. His voice grew harder. And in return, you have treated us like children. You have denied us full membership. You have blocked our proposals. You have taxed our trade and restricted our movement. You have made it clear, again and again, that we are not welcome in your galaxy. He stopped walking and faced the High Arbiter directly. But we built something you did not expect. We invented a technology that makes your old ships obsolete. We created engines that can cross the galaxy in hours instead of months. And suddenly, you realized something terrifying. Daniel's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but it carried through the entire hall. You realized that you could not control us anymore. High Arbiter Zethros leaned forward. His compound eyes glittered in the light. Ambassador Carter, this council is not afraid of humanity. We are concerned about stability. We are concerned about peace. The quantum slip technology threatens the balance of power that has kept this galaxy safe for millennia. Safe for whom? Daniel asked. Safe for the Telori? Safe for the Rillian? Safe for the hundreds of other species that have been conquered or exterminated while this council watched and did nothing. He shook his head. No, High Arbiter. This galaxy has not been safe. It has been controlled. The powerful species have stayed powerful. The weak species have stayed weak. And anyone who threatened to change that balance was crushed. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small data chip. He held it up so everyone could see it. But humanity will not be crushed. We have learned from the mistakes of others. We have prepared for this moment. And now, I'm going to show you something that will change everything. He walked to the central console and inserted the chip. The holographic display above the platform flickered and came to life. This, Daniel said, is a map of the galaxy as you know it. The territories of the council members. The neutral zones. The forbidden regions. Everything your species have explored over the past 10,000 years. The map was familiar to everyone in the hall. They had seen it countless times. And this, Daniel said, pressing a button, is what you do not know. The map expanded. It zoomed outward, revealing vast stretches of space beyond the known borders. And in those spaces, new dots appeared. New star systems. New worlds. New civilizations. For the past 100 years, Daniel said, humanity has been exploring beyond the boundaries of council space. We kept this information secret because we knew exactly how you would react. We knew you would try to stop us. It pointed at the map. We have discovered 217 habitable planets. We have made contact with 31 species that have never heard of the Galactic Council. We have built alliances with races who share our values. Races who believe in freedom and cooperation instead of control and domination. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates were shouting in a dozen different languages. Some were demanding explanations. Some were calling for the human delegation to be arrested. Some were simply staring at the map in shock. High Arbiter Zethros was clicking his mandibles, so fast that the translators could barely keep up. This is impossible. Our sensors would have detected any ships passing beyond the boundary zones. Your sensors are based on old technology, Daniel said calmly. Quantum slip drives do not leave the same energy signatures as your engines. We have been coming and going for decades, and you never noticed. Commander Laura Mitchell stood up from her seat and walked to stand beside Daniel. Her posture was straight and confident. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who commanded warships. What Ambassador Carter is telling you is simple. Humanity has options. We came to this council hoping to be partners. We wanted to share what we had learned. We wanted to work together for the good of all species. She looked around at the frightened faces of the delegates. Instead, you chose to threaten us. You chose to try to take away everything we have built. You chose to treat us as enemies. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That was a mistake. The chaos in the Great Hall continued for several minutes. High Arbiter Zethros had to bang his ceremonial staff against the floor again and again before the delegates finally quieted down. Even then, the atmosphere was charged with tension. Daniel could see fear in many of the alien faces. Real fear. The kind that came from suddenly realizing that the world was not what they had believed it to be. Laura Mitchell activated another display. This one showed a fleet of ships. Hundreds of them, arranged in formations around Earth and its colonies. The vessels were sleek and powerful, their hulls marked with the blue and white colors of the Earth Defense Coalition. As of 6 hours ago, Lavra announced, every ship in the human fleet has been placed on high alert. Our quantum slip vessels can reach any point in Council space within 3 hours. Some can do it in less than 1. She highlighted several groups of ships on the display. These are our carrier groups. Each one holds 50 combat vessels, plus support craft. These are our rapid response squadrons. They can deploy anywhere in the galaxy before your sensors even register their departure. The Drummond ambassador, a creature built like a walking tank, rose to his feet. His voice was deep and harsh. This is a declaration of war. The human fleet is no match for the combined forces of the Council. Are you certain of that? Lavra asked. Your ships are fast by your standards, but by ours, they are slow. Your weapons are powerful, but ours are just as strong. And we have one advantage that you cannot match. She pointed at the star map, which still showed the vast regions of space that humanity had explored. We have allies you have never met. Species who have watched the Galactic Council from a distance and decided they want nothing to do with it. Species who have suffered under your rules or been threatened by your members. They have been waiting for someone to stand up to you. Now someone has. Nathan Cole stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. He had been quiet until now, letting Daniel and Laura handle the confrontation. But now he had something to add. I want to make something clear, Nathan said. We are not threatening you. We are not saying that we want war. Humanity has always believed in peace and cooperation. We still believe in those things. He looked around at the council members with something like sadness in his eyes. But peace cannot be one-sided. Cooperation cannot mean that we do whatever you tell us while you ignore our concerns. For 300 years, we have tried to be good members of this council. We have tried to follow the rules. We have tried to earn your respect." He shook his head slowly. "It never worked. No matter what we did, you never treated us as equals. You never gave us full membership. You never listened to our proposals. You just kept demanding more and more, while giving less and less." Nathan turned to face High Arbiter Zethros directly. "Today, you asked us to surrender our ships. You asked us to disband our military. You asked us to accept foreign observers on our worlds. You asked us to give up our freedom and become your servants." His voice hardened. "The answer is no." The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. No species had ever directly refused a council order. The very idea was unthinkable. High Arbiter Zethros rose to his full height. His forearms spread wide, and his mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translators rendered as extreme anger. "You dare to defy the Galactic Council? You dare to threaten the peace of 1,000 civilizations? This will not stand. The Council will take whatever measures are necessary to bring humanity back under control." Daniel stepped forward before Zethros could continue. "What measures, High Arbiter? Will you send your fleets against us? They cannot catch our ships. Will you blockade our colonies? We have trade routes you do not know about. Will you attack Earth itself?" He paused and looked around at the assembly. "Earth has 8 billion people. Our colonies hold another 6 billion. If you attack us, we will fight back. Every man, every woman, every child old enough to hold a weapon. We have survived ice ages that nearly froze our planet solid. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived wars among ourselves that made your conflicts look like children's games." Daniel's voice grew quiet, but it carried to every corner of the hall. "You think you know what humanity is capable of? You have no idea. When we are pushed, we push back. When we are threatened, we become dangerous. When we are backed into a corner with no escape, we do not surrender. We fight until we win or until we die. There is no other option for us. There never has been." The Valorian ambassador spoke up, his silver eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Pretty words, Ambassador. But words are not weapons. You cannot expect us to believe that your primitive species could stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council." Laura Mitchell laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that made several nearby delegates flinch. "Primitive?" she said. "We landed on our moon before we had computers in our pockets. We split the atom before we had antibiotics. We sent robots to other planets before we had the internet. Every generation of humans has achieved things that the previous generation thought were impossible." She gestured at the star map. 50 years ago, your scientists said that faster-than-light travel could not be improved beyond what the Council already had. They said it was a physical law, like gravity or thermodynamics. Then a human physicist named Maria Santos proved them wrong. She invented the quantum slip drive in a laboratory the size of this platform. Lavra crossed her arms. "Primitive? We have been in space for only 300 years. You have been here for 10,000. And we have already caught up to you. What do you think will happen in another 300 years? What do you think we will be capable of then?" The silence that followed her words was absolute. Daniel could see the council members processing what they had heard. Some looked angry. Some looked frightened. A few, especially among the smaller species, looked almost hopeful. High Arbiter Zethros spoke again, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador Carter? Surely you do not expect the Council to simply abandon all charges and let humanity continue as before?" Daniel shook his head. "No, High Arbiter. We are not asking you to do anything. We are telling you what we are going to do." He reached into his pocket and pulled out another data chip. He held it up for everyone to see. This chip contains a formal notice of withdrawal. As of this moment, humanity is ending its probationary membership in the Galactic Council. We are terminating all treaties, all agreements, all obligations under the Galactic Charter. He inserted the chip into the console. The holographic display showed a document covered in official seals and signatures. "We are not your subjects," Daniel said. "We are not your children. We are not your property. We are a free species, and we will determine our own future." He removed the chip and put it back in his pocket. The question now is what happens next. We are willing to negotiate new agreements based on mutual respect and equal partnership. We are willing to share our technology with any species that wants it. We are willing to work together for the good of the galaxy. His eyes swept across the assembly one last time. But we will never again accept being treated as less than what we are. That era is over. It ended today, in this hall, with these words. He turned and began walking back toward the human delegation. "This session is not adjourned." Zethro shouted. "You cannot simply walk away." Daniel did not stop walking. "Watch us." The human delegation moved as one. Daniel Carter led the way, with Laura Mitchell and Nathan Cole at his sides. Behind them, the 6 other human diplomats fell into formation. They walked with their heads held high and their backs straight, moving toward the great doors of the assembly hall. Behind them, the great hall descended into chaos. Delegates were shouting in dozens of languages. Some demanded that the humans be stopped. Others called for an emergency vote. A few were already leaving their seats, rushing to contact their own governments. The careful order that had defined the Galactic Council for 10,000 years was crumbling in real time. High Arbiter Zethros was clicking his mandibles, so fast that the translators gave up trying to keep pace. He gestured wildly at the Council security forces that lined the walls of the hall. "Stop them," he ordered. "They cannot leave. Arrest them." The security forces hesitated. They were drawn from a dozen different species, each with their own loyalties and concerns. The Valorian guards looked ready to move, but the others held back. No one wanted to be the first to act against a species that had just demonstrated capabilities beyond anything they had imagined. Daniel did not slow down. He could hear the confusion behind him, the raised voices, the clicking and hissing and growling of alien languages. But he kept walking, his footsteps steady on the polished floor of the hall. The great doors loomed ahead. They were 50 feet tall, carved from some kind of alien wood that gleamed with deep purple colors. They had stood for thousands of years, a symbol of the Council's power and permanence. A group of Valorian guards moved to block the exit. Their leader, a tall figure with particularly bright silver eyes, held up one hand. "Ambassador Carter, by the authority of the Galactic Council, you are ordered to return to your seat and await judgment." Daniel stopped a few feet in front of the guards. Laura moved up beside him, her posture relaxed but ready for anything. Nathan stayed behind them, already tapping something into his communicator. "Step aside," Daniel said quietly. The Valorian guard shook his head. "I have my orders. You will not leave this hall." Laura spoke without turning her head. "Nathan, send the signal." Nathan tapped one final command into his communicator. Done. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every display screen in the great hall flickered and changed. Instead of showing Council information, they now displayed a single image, a fleet of human ships, engines glowing bright blue, positioned in formation around a massive space station. The Council Station. This Council Station? Daniel looked at the Valorian guard. "Those ships arrived approximately 10 minutes ago. They have been sitting just outside your sensor range, waiting for my signal. They are now visible to every scanner on this station." The guard's silver eyes widened. He looked up at the screens, then back at Daniel. "We are not here to start a war," Daniel continued. "Those ships will not fire unless fired upon. But they are here to make sure that we leave safely. And we are going to leave. Now." The guard hesitated for a long moment. Daniel could see the conflict in his eyes. Duty versus survival. Orders versus common sense. Finally, the guard stepped aside. His soldiers followed his lead, creating a clear path to the doors. "Thank you," Daniel said simply. The human delegation walked through the doors and into the corridor beyond. The doors closed behind them with a deep resonant boom that seemed to echo through the entire station. The corridor was empty. Everyone who might have been passing through had fled when the news of the human fleet spread. The station was going into emergency lockdown, with frightened officials rushing to shelter and warriors preparing for a battle that might never come. Laura allowed herself a small smile. "That was closer than I would have liked." "It worked," Daniel said. "That is what matters." They walked quickly through the corridors, following the route they had memorized earlier. Every few seconds, Lavra checked her own communicator, monitoring the position of the human fleet and the movements of Council forces. "They are not pursuing us," she reported. "The Valorian ships are moving into defensive positions around the station, but they are not engaging our fleet." "They are scared," Nathan observed. "For the first time in their history, they do not know what is going to happen next. They do not know if we are bluffing. They do not know how strong we really are. That uncertainty is keeping them cautious." Daniel nodded. "Good. Let us make sure they stay cautious until we are safely away." They reached the docking bay where their ship waited. The Endeavor was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship, but it was equipped with the latest quantum slip drive and could outrun anything the Council had. Its hull gleamed under the harsh lights of the bay, and its engines were already warming up. The crew was waiting at the boarding ramp. They looked nervous but relieved to see the delegation returning. "Ambassador, we have been monitoring the situation," the captain reported. "The fleet is in position and ready to escort us home." "Then let us not waste any more time," Daniel said. "Get us out of here." They boarded quickly. The doors sealed behind them, and the Endeavor lifted off from the docking bay floor. Through the viewports, Daniel could see the vast bulk of the Council station falling away beneath them. It had been his home for 15 years. He had walked its corridors, attended its ceremonies, argued in its meeting rooms. He had believed once that he could change things from the inside. That patience and diplomacy would eventually earn humanity a place of respect among the stars. He had been wrong, but perhaps this was better. Perhaps humanity was not meant to earn respect through patience. Perhaps they had to demand it. The Endeavor cleared the station and accelerated toward the waiting fleet. Through the viewports, Daniel could see the human ships falling into formation around them. Cruisers and destroyers, carriers and frigates, all of them ready to fight if necessary. Nathan came to stand beside him at the viewport. "Do you think they will attack?" "Not today," Daniel said. "They are too confused, too frightened. They need time to understand what just happened." "And tomorrow?" Daniel thought about the question carefully. "Tomorrow, some of them will want revenge. Others will want to negotiate. A few might even want to join us. The galaxy is about to change, Nathan. Everything that seemed permanent and unchangeable is suddenly uncertain." He turned away from the viewport and faced his team. Lavra was already coordinating with the fleet commanders. The other diplomats were messaging their contacts on Earth, spreading the news of what had happened. Everyone had a job to do. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next," Daniel said. "The Council will not accept this quietly. There will be challenges, probably conflicts. Some species will try to destroy us. Others will try to use us for their own purposes." He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "But we have something they do not understand. We have each other. We have 8 billion people on Earth who will not give up, no matter what. We have colonies full of families who chose to build new lives among the stars. We have scientists and soldiers and dreamers who have spent their whole lives preparing for this moment. He smiled, and for the first time since the session began, it was a genuine smile. Humanity has been waiting 300 years to be free. Today, we finally are. The Endeavor's quantum slip drive activated. Space folded around the ship, and the stars stretched into long lines of light. In an instant, the council station vanished behind them. They were going home. And when they arrived, they would tell the people of Earth what had happened. They would tell them that the old order was finished. They would tell them that humanity no longer had to bow to anyone. The galaxy had tried to keep humanity small. It had tried to control them, to limit them, to make them into something manageable and safe. It had failed. And now, for the first time in 300 years, humanity was going to show the galaxy what they could really do. The stars waited ahead, bright and infinite and full of possibilities. Daniel Carter watched them through the viewport and felt something he had not felt in a very long time: hope.